Hello. All right. I am so excited for today's topic. We are talking about the basics of systems today. Starting from square one, if you have no idea what a system is, stick around. I want you to see this. I want you to hear this. Um, we're going to start at the very beginning and really dive deeper into what makes something a system and how you can get started with creating your own. Um, Hello, I'm Jenna, if you don't know me, and I help women simplify and create systems and rhythms around their home and their business so that your home and business are working together instead of competing against each other, so that you are left at the end of the day with time and energy to spend doing the things that really bring you joy and fulfillment, and that there's room for all the different interests and hobbies and desires that you want to pursue in your life, and that you don't feel kind of tied down by things that you feel like you have to do. You get to do more of the things that you want to do. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. It is pouring rain outside today. And it makes me want to take a nap, but we're going to do this thing. So if you are watching, say hello in the comments. Let me know what you're up to today. I would love to hear from you. So if you are a person who has a business, even if you work from home for someone else, if you keep hearing that you need systems, you've got to have systems, but you don't even really know what that means, that's what we're here for today. And then once we understand what a system is, what it does for us, what makes a system, we're going to go a little bit into a handful of systems that I think every online business needs, that are kind of those core foundational pieces. So we're going to go into all that today. And this kind of came up because I was talking to my sister a couple weeks ago, who has her own online business and who helps me with some of my marketing tasks, her business is fairly new, and she was saying, we're talking about systems all the time. I still don't really even know what it is. I don't know what systems I'm supposed to have. And I was like, oh, I bet there are a lot of people out there who feel that way. And I think part of the reason is there's an assumption that people just know what that means. But also because the term system is used in a lot of different ways for a lot of different things. A system can be super, super simple. So I have, I guess, what I would call a system for keeping up with our dog's flea and tick medication, right? And it's super simple. I have a reminder on my phone every month. The reminder pops up. It says Rocky flea and tick. I tell my husband, we stuff the Kong, we do the thing. The next month, the same reminder comes up, we do the same thing. That is an example of like a super, super simple system in my home, right? And then it also can go to much more complex things like onboarding new clients in your business, where you are needing to collect information from them. They are needing information from you about how to get started, how to get the most out of your work together. You're wanting to welcome them and make them feel like they've made a great decision to work with you and like they're a part of something now. And so there are a lot of different goals and a lot of different steps that can happen during a more complex system, like onboarding a new client. But when it comes down to it, the foundational elements are the same. And I'm actually going to share with you in a little bit sort of an equation of what makes a system. What are the parts that you need? So before we get into that, I want to talk about why this is such a big topic in the first place. Why you keep getting told you need systems, right? Because obviously there's a reason for it if everyone out there is talking about it, telling you this is what you need. And there are a few big reasons that I see that I recommend people set up systems and rhythms for. One is that it reduces your mental load so significantly. And this is one of the the biggest things. Like, this is what I'm thinking about all the time. How can I make things easier for people's minds? How can I make it so that we are not constantly like going over and over these thoughts? We're not constantly trying to remember things. How can it feel? How can we be able to be more present because we're not worried about all this other stuff going on? So when you have a system in place, it tells you what needs to be done, when, in what order. You have everything that you need to implement that process in one place, and you know that it's there. So when your mind starts to wander, you can remind yourself, oh, I already have this information in a safe place. I don't need to go down this rabbit hole right now. I can come back to what I'm actually wanting to focus on in this moment. And along those same lines, it also makes you more efficient. It saves you a ton of time because every time you say onboard a new client, you're not having to remember, oh yeah, how did I do it last time? Did it work? Did it go well? Did it not? Where's my contract template? How do I, just like, you're not having to remember things every time you go in. You've got essentially like a checklist. You've got all the files you need in one place. You know exactly what you need to do. And so you can just kind of bang it out. You can go through the steps, get it done, way less time. Okay? Efficiency is wonderful. And then the other reason is that when you're doing this for your business, your clients are also going to benefit from the systems that you have in place. They're going, whether they really realize that that's why or not, you're going to end up coming across to them as someone who's super reliable, who really has their act together, who knows exactly how to help them, and that is going to add a ton of value to your client's experience of working with you. So, I mean, those are 3 huge reasons. I'm sure there are a lot more, but those are the ones that I come back to again and again, is saving your time, saving your energy, and creating an even better experience for your clients and being able to support them even better. So now that we know why people are talking about these system things all the time, I want to share with you sort of an equation that I came up with to explain on a really basic level what a system actually is, right? So write this down. Grab your notebook or your pen, open up a Google Doc. So a system is a process plus tools. Okay, that's all it is. So your process is going to be the steps that you take. It's going to be what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So you'll have steps laid out. You're going to have a timeline or deadlines attached to those steps. And you're going to have that documented, laid out clearly. Excuse me. That is your process. You might also hear that called your procedure or your SOP, which is just an abbreviation for your standard operating procedure. I'm going to talk about that a little more later on too. But it's basically what you're going to do when you're going to do it. Now, the second part of the equation is your tools. So this is going to be any equipment, any software, any stuff that you need to be able to implement the steps in your process. So let's say you record a weekly podcast. Some of the steps in your process are going to be choosing your topic, outlining what you're going to talk about, recording the audio, editing the audio, uploading it to whatever your podcast platform is, right? So those are going to be some of the main steps of your process. Your tools might be things like your microphone, your phone or your laptop, whatever you're recording on, the software, whatever your hosting platform is that puts your podcast out into the world for people to find it and hear it. Those are some of the tools. So when you combine the steps and the tools, that's your system. All right? So system equals process plus tools. And so I thought I'd go through a couple of examples here. We talked a little bit about, what it would look like for a podcast. There are a few systems that I believe are essential for all online businesses. So I'm going to break down a couple of them and then I'll just list the others just to kind of give you something to think about. So the first one that I think If you're working one-on-one with clients in any capacity, whether you're a coach, whether you're a service provider, whatever it is, you need to have a system in place for scheduling and booking calls with people. And that includes your consults or your discovery calls, your strategy session, whatever you call that conversation you have with someone where you invite them to work with you, right? So, your process. So, the goal here, we always want to have a goal for the system as well. So, if the goal is to take someone from a prospect to a client, right, there are going to be a few different steps that take you from here to there. So, those steps in your process might include things like responding to a DM or an email that they send. Maybe you start the conversation elsewhere and then you invite them to a call. So then you're going to invite them to a call from whatever that message is where you were communicating with them. You might want to ask them some sort of qualifying questions or just collect some information about them to help you prepare for the conversation when they book their call. Okay? You might want to remind them beforehand that the call is coming up. You want to make sure it's on your calendar. You want to make sure it's on their calendar. Okay? Then you're going to have the actual call, and then you may have some kind of follow-up as well. So that's an example of what the steps of that process might look like. And then some of the tools you might need are going to be like your Google Calendar, a scheduler. I love Calendly. It's a really good option for people who are just starting out. I find it really user-friendly and easy to get started with. Acuity is another really good one, but it is a little more robust. So it can be a little bit more overwhelming if you're brand new to kind of the online business space and using those tools. But anyway, you're going to want a calendar. You're going to want a scheduler like Calendly or Acuity. And that's really the tools that you need. Okay, so that is all of those pieces together will add up to your system for bringing someone through from a prospect, someone who's interested in learning more, to becoming a client. Now, another one that we pretty much all are dealing with is creating content for our businesses. If you're an online business, you are probably creating content to share somewhere on the internet, whether it be social media or a blog or whatever it is. So your strategy is going to kind of have to come first. But then once you have a strategy and a plan of what type of content you want to be sharing and where, then you need a system in place to make sure that it actually happens, right? Because I think all of us have experienced this, where you have a really great plan, but then it just doesn't really happen in real life, right? So the system is what we put in place to help make sure that you're actually going to implement this plan that you created. So in a content creation system, your process is going to look something like outlining your topics, writing your captions or whatever copy you are putting out there, creating graphics, and then scheduling or posting it, sharing it out into the world. Some of the tools that you might use to do that might be something like Canva, where you can design your graphics. You might use a spreadsheet or a project management tool like Trello to lay out your topics and your schedule for your content. You might use a scheduler like Later to schedule your posts in advance so that you aren't having to go in and do them manually all the time. Okay, so that's just another example. The process and the tools make the whole system. Some other core systems that I believe are kind of foundational for online businesses are onboarding. How are you going to welcome your new clients and set them up for success? Set yourself up for success. Okay. What information do you need from them? What information do they need from you? Project management. Again, whether you're a service provider or a coach, how are you serving your client? What are the steps or the stages that they're going to go through? And how are you going to manage that and make sure that everyone is getting the full and best version of your service every time? And then invoicing and payments. How are you going to get paid? How are you going to track your finances as you have money coming in and as you have money going out for expenses? You've got to have some kind of system in place to hold that information together. And then you might also find, probably will find, that you need some kind of a system for managing your emails, managing your files, so that you can find the information you need when you need it. Again, we're not spending a ton of time and hours looking for things when you can have it in a place where you can access it like that as soon as you need it. All right? And so because we want to think about our home as well, this is definitely a more business-focused live today. But in the home, there are lots of systems we can create as well around things like laundry and meal planning and cleaning, home maintenance, the family finances. There are systems that you can put in place for all of these things to help make them flow more smoothly so that you're not having to think about it all the time. It almost has parts that can just kind of go on autopilot or become a part of your routine and a part of your normal day or week or month. So we know now what a system is. We have this simple equation: a process plus the tools equals a system. And I've gone through some examples of core systems that you probably want to have in place in your business, how those serve you, and some of the pieces that you might need to put in place to implement those. Now, the other super important step is the way you document your systems, because we don't want to be reinventing the wheel every time. Like, a huge point of creating a system in the first place is so that you don't have to go back and figure it all out again next time. So we want to make sure it's documented really clearly in a place where it's easy to find and access. So this is where we start to talk about an SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, and it's really just how you document your system. And I also really love the process of doing this documentation because it gives you an opportunity to make sure that your system is as efficient and as simple as it can possibly be. Our goal is simplicity. Our goal is doing what needs to be done without a bunch of extra stuff taking up your time, taking up your energy, confusing you. Okay, we keep it simple. So this really is a topic for a whole separate training, but I just wanted to give a brief outline of the 5-step framework that I use when creating an SOP, so that if there is a system that you want to try out for yourself right now in your home or your business, you'll kind of know where to start and how to go through those steps. So the first step is to document and assess what you're already doing. So I like to say, if you've done something even just one time, you have a process for it. It may not be ideal, but it exists. It's a starting point, right? And even if it's something you haven't done, just take a minute and kind of mentally think through, okay, what do you think you need to do first? What do you think would need to happen next? And list out those steps. So you're listing out the process piece, okay? And then we're going to go through and assess it. And we're going to look at a few different things here. Are there parts that feel like they're working really well already? Are there parts that feel really clunky or confusing, or like they're taking a lot more time than you want them to take or you think they should be taking? And are there parts of this process that you've done before that you're not really sure actually need to be there? Is there something that you can just cut out, and will the end result still be what you need it to be? Okay, so that's the first step. That's documenting and assessing what you're already doing, your current process. Now in the second one, we're going to streamline. So this goes also into removing steps that just don't need to be there. There might be tools that you can use to make things quicker. Now, we're going to get to automating in a minute, but I want to give an example here of doing show notes for a podcast. So for some of my virtual assisting clients, I have done podcast support where I'm writing show notes and other things related to their podcast. And there's a lot of different ways you can come up with show notes, right? One way would be to listen to the whole episode, take notes, write it up, edit it down. Takes forever, right? Another thing is you can bring in a tool. I use Otter. It's a transcription service where once they record the podcast, I run a transcript and I edit it down from there. I pull out the highlights and it makes the process way quicker and smoother, and it is still all in the client's own words. So that's one example of how you can streamline a step in your process. Okay, writing the show notes takes, half as long or whatever when you're using this tool. Okay, so you're going to look through the steps. Do these steps all need to be here? And is there a way that I can make them easier or more efficient on myself? Now, the next step is when we look at automating. So there will almost always, I think, be some parts of your process that you can automate. There are also probably going to be steps that just need to be done manually by a human person. But there is so much that can be automated now. And it is so, I think, fun to kind of find these new tools and figure out how to utilize those. So one really simple example is with your content. If you are creating, you can batch create your social media posts, create the graphics, create the captions, and then you can plug them into a scheduler so that they are automatically posted. It's like a set it and forget it type of a situation, right? You're not going in there every single day and putting up a post. You do it once a week. They go out. Great, right? So what can you automate in your process? Where can you let technology do some of the work for you? And then we move on to delegating, because some of those things that need to be done by a human person don't need to be done by you. And so if you're in a place where you are able to have some additional support, this can apply again to business or to your home. What can you delegate out? Okay, so I have some help with some of my marketing tasks, as I mentioned before, where I do the writing, but then I have someone help me by creating the graphics and doing the scheduling, formatting things and putting them up on the blog, some of that back-end admin type of stuff that needs to be done, but I don't have to be the one doing it, right? And then in your home, what can you delegate to your family? Are there chores that you can ask your spouse or partner or your kids for some help with? Or if you're in a position where you're able, can you delegate out cleaning or things like that? We can delegate to technology sometimes too. Ordering my groceries online and going to pick them up isn't automated. I still have to do the order and go pick them up. But somebody else is walking around the store, filling up that cart and packing those bags for me, right? So what are some areas where you can get some help from someone else so that you are not personally doing all the things yourself? And then our final step is maintain. And this is one that I think a lot of people miss. And it is super, super important if you really want to get all of those good benefits out of your system. Because, okay, imagine like when you declutter your house, right? Think of setting up your system like decluttering your house. You're going to go through, you're going to clean out, let's say, your kitchen cabinets. They're going to look amazing. You're going to take pictures and put them on Instagram or whatever. And then real life is going to happen and more food is going to be coming in and people are going to be in and out of the cabinets and it's going to look like a mess again in a few weeks. But if you have a system where you're rotating things or where you're clearing stuff out even once a month, you're going to be able to keep that kind of more orderly feel that you wanted. It's the same thing for your system. You're going to set up this system, but as you go through it, you're going to want to make sure it's working as smoothly as you want. If you have automations set up, you want to make sure that they're performing the way they're supposed to. And you also just want to check back in. Could be quarterly. It doesn't have to be all that often, maybe even twice a year, and review your SOP and say, okay, this was working really great for me when it started. My business has evolved in the past 3 months, 6 months, whatever. How do I need to adjust this system so that it evolves with me? And we like that maintenance because you're not starting from scratch again. You're not creating a brand new system. You have something that's working that you're going to make small adjustments to make it better. So those are the 5 steps I suggest you go through when you're first creating your system, right? We're going to document and assess what you're already doing, streamline those steps, use technology to automate whatever you can. This comes into the tools piece. Delegate anything out that you can, and then create a maintenance plan and follow up with that to make sure that the system you put so much heart and intention and energy into is going to continue to serve you for a long, long time. So that is kind of the meat of today. I have been wanting to talk about this topic for a while. It was really fun to do. So now you know the benefits of having systems, how they are going to support you and your clients and your family, saving you time. You make sure all of those essentials are covered. You're not worried about forgetting something important because you know it's taken care of. You're reducing that mental load so that you can actually be present and feel less overwhelmed. When you're not working and you want to be present with your kids or your partner, you can be. You don't have to be distracted and going down the rabbit hole of things you don't want to forget to do for work tomorrow. And we've also just defined what a system is. It's the steps that you're going to take, your process, and the tools that you need to make it happen. And then we've gone through the 5 steps of what you need to do to create your very first SOP or your documented system. So you can get started right now. You just need to identify where you need a system, lay out your steps, determine your tools, and work through that process of documenting it and getting it in place. You can do that today, right now. And I have spent myself the last 3 years creating systems for my own business, helping my clients optimize their systems, and I've been even longer than that figuring out the best ways to be more efficient and less loaded down in my home. I've got 2 little boys, they're 7 and almost 10. We've got a 2-year-old Australian Shepherd who is a lot. Sometimes we've got a lot of things going on. And so if you're ready to get started with your systems, but maybe you're not totally sure where the best starting point is for you, and you want some personalized help and support along the way, I want to invite you to book a free system strategy session with me. I want to hear about all the things that are happening in your home and business, your values, your goals, how things are flowing, where you feel overwhelmed or anxious, and then together we'll pinpoint an area where you could benefit the most from having a really intentional system in place and talk about the first step in creating it. So I will leave a link in the comments so you can grab a spot on my calendar. I can't wait to talk to you. And of course, whether you book a call or not, I will be back here next week with more strategies and tips for simplifying your home and business to create more space for the things that bring you joy. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye.